Welcome to the Workplace Minute, powered by H3HR Advisors and sponsored by WorkHuman. Thanks for joining me for a quick update on what's important in the world of work. My name is Steve Boese. Today in the Workplace Minute, we're discussing what's happening in the U.S., where increasing tension, anxiety, fear, and anger is affecting people and workplaces. I don't know what the right answers are, but I do know that we can't ignore the reality of the impact on people. This edition of the show comes at an incredibly and profoundly distressing moment in U.S. history. The killings of Alex Preddy and Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis by agents of the federal government, which most of us have seen numerous times from citizen-captured video, have the nation and its people on edge. We're buffeted by the combination of trauma, rage, sadness, confusion, and more. We're watching the continued actions of the federal government in Minneapolis and in cities all over the nation, and rightly asking questions that as Americans we thought we'd never have to raise. How is this happening in America? Why is this happening? How come no one in authority can make this stop? And more pointedly, for the millions of Americans who woke up today, it's Monday, how am I supposed to go to work today and act like everything is normal? How am I supposed to care about my monthly reports or our status meeting or customer returns or delivering packages? How am I supposed to stand in front of a meeting and do a presentation on the amazing new AI system? How am I supposed to teach a class of first graders a math lesson while I'm thinking about how for some of them, mom or dad might not be coming home tonight? Or even worse, how masked and heavily alarmed agents might show up here at my school and try to take some of my kids away. My workday today began with a 25-minute conversation talking about these very same questions. How can I care about all the XYZs of the job today when if I just turn on the TV or spend 10 minutes on TikTok, all I will see are these harrowing, awful images on repeat? And I live and work in a rural community. I'm far away from the day-to-day violence playing out in Minneapolis and other places, yet I can't escape it either. I can't even begin to think about the people and the workers who live in Minneapolis and have to wonder if they're safe just going to work or taking their kids to school or checking on their elderly relatives, if they're safe simply just existing at this moment in America. And if they can put all that aside and show up at the office or on the Monday morning Zoom call, then what? Are they able at all to focus more than a few minutes at a time before their mind turns back to the reality of what is happening on the streets of their city and other cities? Are they able to set aside their phones at all? Because looking through their phones, they're constantly monitoring their location of their loved ones or looking for any urgent or panicked messages from them. And then do they have to look across the hall or into the office next to them or to the person on the video call and wonder if they, too, are suffering in the same emotional turmoil? Or do they have to think about if that person feels completely differently about what's going on in America right now and is not troubled at all by the state of our nation? And if their views are the ones that have led to these scenes of violence in American cities? Could we then put all that aside and continue to work with a person like that? We are, all of us, in this moment, at least for me, it recalls the time just after the 9/11 attacks. In the immediate aftermath, there was a generalized and collective period of trauma, mourning, rage, fear. There were real fears back then that really nowhere was safe, that any building or airplane or major piece of infrastructure like a bridge or a power plant, they were all at risk of attack. We feared traveling very far from our homes, and for a time from gathering in any large group of any type. And many people avoided air travel for years after 9/11. But eventually those fears turned to resolve. The American people came together and stayed united for a time anyway, and life eventually went back to normal. But while I made the comparison of life in America in January 2026 to the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks, there is one crucial difference. While we didn't know for sure who or what nation was responsible for the 9/11 attacks, we knew that they arose from outside enemies, from and by people who wished America and Americans harm or even death. It was easier in many ways for us as Americans to understand that and rally together against a shared threat emanating from far, far away. Today, however, threats and fear in American cities and workplaces are not being created by sinister, scary, outside or foreign enemies. They're being perpetrated on Americans by agents of our own government. I can't begin to describe how shocking this is and how incomprehensible it should be to all of us. Yet as of today, the situation continues, and where it progresses from here is hard to know. So let's cycle back to the point of this episode of the Workplace Minute. In this context, in places at the center of the unrest like Minneapolis, and in places in America that are seemingly far removed from the violence and fear, there is one constant. Most of us are expected to show up for work, and for the most part, pretend that everything is normal and fine and continue to check items off our to-do lists and carry on. Managers are still making sure employees are clocking in on time. Supervisors are checking for employees who may be slacking off or taking just a bit too long to come back from lunch. And algorithms everywhere are monitoring and evaluating time spent logged in and keystrokes typed and call resolution times and on and on and on. Workers, your colleagues, and even you yourself are being asked to carry on when for many of us, truly for all of us, we're all just one moment away from our entire world being upside down. And if you don't think that's the case, you're misguided. Just watch the videos. I will wrap up the show here, not with a solution to any of this, but just a couple of closing thoughts. If you are someone responsible for managing and leading people at work, please don't forget what people are going through and how they are potentially struggling. Please don't ignore your own struggles with the state of the workplace and of the country. Take a moment or maybe several moments to allow people to have time and space to process their emotions. Allow them to be real people, for which the fear and anger they're experiencing are more than they might be able to process right now, and certainly more than they can manage and still carry out all of their work tasks flawlessly. Offer them whatever support you can as a person and whatever resources the organization can provide to them as well. And finally, if for you or for someone on the team, if it's all just too much for them today, then just accept that. Tomorrow's another day. I would love to hear from anyone listening for more ideas and thoughts on how your workplace is supporting people and your community in these unbelievable times. Thanks so much for listening, and a big thank you to WorkHuman for supporting the Workplace Minute. If this episode made you think about how your organization is supporting your people in these unprecedented moments, please share it with a colleague. I'm Steve Boese, and this has been the Workplace Minute from H3 HR Advisors.